In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Councilor Armand Murcia.
Here.
Councilor Rita Murcia.
Here.
Councilor Milanazzo.
Here.
Councilor Ramirez.
Here.
Councilor Broderick.
Here.
Councilor Caulfield.
Here.
Councilor Donahue.
Here.
Councilor Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Martin.
Here.
9 present.
Before we proceed with the agenda, I did want to introduce some special guests that we have with us tonight from the city of Saint-Dié-des-Vosges in France. Is that pronounced correctly, Councilor Mercier?
Saint-Dié-des-Vosges.
Okay. This city in France, so those of you who may not know, developed a sister city relationship with the city of Lowell back when Councilor Howe was mayor. I believe in the 1980s, he had visited their city. When Councilor Armand Mercier was mayor, he was in touch with the mayor and had planned to visit America himself, but was unable to. So we have two deputy mayors from France with us this evening. The city they hail from in France considers itself the godmother of America. It was a place where the first maps that contain the name of America were made in the year 1507. So they're very proud of their relationship with America. They've been here for a few days now, and we're showing them a good time around the city, introducing them to curling and some of the international events we have here. And so without further ado, I'd like to present Mrs. Chantal Vey and Mrs. Veronique K. And their translator is Francois Bretonnet. If they could just...
I prepare some words, but I don't speak English very well, so excuse me. There is Chantal Vey, I'm Veronique Kerr. Dear Mayor Martin, dear city councillors, let me tell you how happy we are to be here this evening with you. Some of us, namely Chantal Vey and I, Veronique Kerr, hadn't come to the United States for 20 years. This can explain my bad accent, but it won't prevent us from catching with the people we will meet. If necessary, we have Françoise Brianté. Where is? Oh, it's our photographer. He's ready to help us. We brought a message of friendship from our mayor, Christian Pierret. He was very sorry not to be able to become over. Just be sure that he loves America, and on his behalf, we have in change, I'm inviting you to Saint-Dié-des-Vosges for our next International Festival of Geography, we say the FIG, that will take place at the end of September. You are completely concerned by this event as we commemorate the 500th anniversary of the naming of America, which happened in our city in 1507. So, we would be very pleased to welcome you in Saint-Dié-des-Vosges. We would like to serve to seize this opportunity to know you better, as well your city and your history. I invite you, if it's possible, to hear the message of our mayor, Christian Pierret, and you have prepared some few slides to make you feel like coming to Saint-Dié-des-Vosges. I thank you for your attention.
Certainly, your English is much better than my French.
Yeah, right.
And I did want to show the council some of the gifts that we've exchanged. This is a very lovely print that the mayor had sent over to our city, and also some books concerning the celebration of geography. And if you would just come forward one more time, I'd like to present you with a key to our city.
Oh, how nice.
The deputy mayors. Deputy mayor, like Coggins and...
And one of the other matters that we received is a nice video disc presentation that we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with at the moment, but we hope to be able to present it at the end of the meeting for folks to see who are watching the meeting at home. Councilor Mercier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's such a pleasure and an honor to see these lovely ladies here grace our city all the way from France. And I just want to say, où est la bibliothèque? That's about all. But anyways, this is a pleasure to have him here and to know that they're here from such far away and they're mayors. So this is a great thing, especially that they're women. That's very good. I'm impressed.
The mayor is a man, however.
Thank you,
Well,
yes.
deputy mayors, but they're in the government, so that's good. All right,
So
enchanté.
they will be with us until the end of the week. They've already seen a lot of our sites. I believe had a national park tour today, have seen the curling festival. I'm going to spend a day with the French department at UMass Lowell later in the week. So we do have some activities, and if you see these folks around town, certainly welcome them and show them your best hospitality, as we've been doing with all our visitors this week. Thank you for coming. Councilor Armin Mercier.
First of all, am delighted they're here. We were in communications in the last couple of years. And I want to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being so gracious, for being so welcoming, and for making them feel right at home. That city is the godmother of America because of what happened in 1507, and also one of the drafters of a proclamation that gave the Statue of Liberty to the United States was home of Jules Ferry. He was actually, at the time, a minister of France and drafted the resolution that gave the United States the Statue of Liberty, and that was his home. And I just want to thank you very much for being very gracious. Your office was very good, and they've really felt very welcome, as they indicated to me. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for such a fine job.
Okay, thank you. On with the agenda, I believe the first item is approval of the minutes of the March 28th meeting. Motion to approve the minutes as presented by Councilor Caulfield, seconded by Councilor Donahue. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved.
Mr. Mayor, can I be recorded as present, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Please record Councilor Milanazzo as present. Under the city manager's portion of the agenda, there is a vote authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend funds from the Federal Emergency Management Agency under its 2006 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program in the amount of $500,000 for the City of Lowell Fire Department. Motion to waive the full reading by Councilor Milanazzo, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? The motion to waive the full reading is approved. Second reading by title, a vote authorizing the city manager to apply for, accept, and expend funds from the Federal Emergency Management Agency under its 2006 Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program in the amount of $500,000 for the City of Lowell Fire Department. Questions? Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. This is, if we were to get the grant, it requires us to do a match of $100,000 for the $500,000, Mr. Manager.
That's correct, Councilor.
And what is the grant for? What would it be used
To
for?
buy a hazmat vehicle. The current vehicle is about 20 years old we have in the city. So this money has become available. They cost about $600,000, and we've got about $500,000 towards that purchase price.
So the, so this would cover the purchase price?
The
Pretty
purchase
much.
price is about 600,000. We would need to put about 20% in, which is about 100,000.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? Roll call.
Counselor Arman Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Rita Mercia.
Yes.
Counselor Milonazo.
Yes.
Counselor Ramirez.
Yes.
Counselor Broderick.
Yes.
Counselor Caulfield.
Yes.
Counselor Donahue.
Yes.
Counselor Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Martin.
Yes. Next item, orders of taking, 295.1 Middlesex Street, 324 Jackson Street, 360 Jackson Street, 169, 171, 351 Jackson Street, 307 Jackson Street, 291 Jackson Street, 6 King Street, 375 to 379 and 389 Middlesex Street, all in the Hamilton Canal District Jam Plan. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, councilors, ladies and gentlemen. You have a letter before you tonight on your desk suggesting or recommending that these three matters all be put off till April the 25th meeting. It's pretty self-explanatory what happened in the letter. DPD is here if anybody has any questions, but since approximately 2004, when we began the Betty and the 108 transfer from the Performing Arts Center to the Hamilton Canal District, we have been waiting for HUD to technically or legally release the money. This was not forthcoming. We felt that we might have to, and that's why there's a loan order on there and a vote to amend a previous vote. We felt we might have to do some short-term borrowing for the takings. We just found out yesterday or Monday or Friday, Adam, that HUD would will be making the money available to us on April the 19th, basically $5 million. Because of that, we will be able to avoid the short-term borrowing if we put the taking off until April the 25th. In other words, on April the 25th, we would have the full amount of the money in hand, which we need to do. That would mean we would not have to do any short-term borrowing, therefore saving the city whatever money that would be. So this is good news. It's been a long time coming, clearly, but anytime we don't need to put city funds out there, I think it's a good move to take. So we're suggesting that all three of these votes be put off, and in fact, if things happen the way we think they will happen, both the loan order and the vote to amend will be actually pulled on the 25th of April. And we would not have to do either one of them, because the money would be in place from HUD.
Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. And so you need the money in order to do the takings. Is that the situation? In other words, we couldn't vote to proceed with the takings unless the money were approved.
That's correct.
Now, would it be possible to move forward on all the votes, and then if we didn't need it, not take action, or what, would we still incur cost, I guess?
We would incur costs if we voted for a loan order and began to and borrowed that money. Then obviously we would incur interest costs on it until the actual $5 million from the Betty and the 108 became available, which will be on April the 19th. Next meeting after that would be the 25th. So on the 25th, we would actually have that money in hand, which we need to do legally before we do a taking. So
it's just that we've waited so long for that Betty money. We're certain that it's going to happen, I guess. Is that?
That's what I think we have it in writing from HUD.
Okay.
Isn't that right, Adam, on that?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager. We have been told to expect the wire transfer on the 19th for the $3 million. It comes from the J.P. Morgan company. They do all the loan servicing for the 108 loans. As soon as that's in hand, the $2 million Betty is drawn down through the lock system, which we use all the time for community development block grant, for the McKinney Fund, et cetera. So that should be done. That can be done within 3 to 4 days after the wire transfer. So we should have everything lined up and ready to go, as the manager said, for Tuesday the 25th. And that's all from HUD as recently as yesterday.
Right. So, and if for some reason it wasn't, would proceed with this on the 25th. Is that?
If it wasn't in preparation, for any alternative, I guess what we could do is we could actually publicize the public hearing for the $5 million loan order. So it would be ready to go on the 25th, to do it, and then just have it approved that night.
That's what I'm getting at. Like, if we were to proceed tonight, it would have to go to a public hearing, right? Is that,
Correct.
okay?
We would have to advertise that loan order, correct?
And I mean, I'm only looking at, is there a way to kind of close the gap of if we get delayed again, can we shorten that time so we're not starting over?
Well, I think the better thing to do would be to go ahead, that's why we have it on the agenda for this evening. We can go ahead and advertise that as if we were going to actually do it on the 25th.
And then
just
can we
not do
then
it.
not go forward with the public
Exactly.
hearing?
Exactly, yep. That's what the plan is.
All right, so is that what we're doing?
That's what we will do, yes. By putting these three over, correct, Chris?
Madam Solicitor?
Thanks. Actually, once we had discovered that, that it did not appear as if the borrowing would take place, what we were planning on doing tonight was really to have the council take no action. And HUD has indicated in writing, again, as Adam had, or as Matt had indicated, that they were going to be coming forward with the money. The other thing that we wanted to have in place is, again, because interest starts accumulating the minute we take that taking, we wanted to have everything in hand in order to go forward. So we weren't going to necessarily proceed with the advertising of going forward with a loan order, because based on the latest conversations as well as some writing communications from HUD, that money is expected.
But I think your point, Counselor, is I don't know why we can't go ahead and advertise the loan order, just to be on the safe side.
We could certainly put together a loan order, have it advertised. It's going to have to be advertised for 10 days, and use that as a.
I mean, my only point, and I believe we will get the money from from HUD and from the bet. It's just that it's been talked about for a while, So if for some reason we were delayed, we just don't want to keep waiting because of bureaucracy. That's my only point. I mean,
I was under the impression we were going to go ahead and publicize it.
Okay.
I don't. We could still do that, couldn't we? Publicize it now. And do the loan order?
We could work with bond counsel, draft up the final a
To
loan
be ready
order
to go
in the
the
amount
next
for $5 million, right, and get it advertised. Again, the thing that was very attractive about not going down that road at all was not having to, as the manager indicated, start to deal with the cost of interest.
well, yeah,
And I understand your point
yeah.
that if there's a delay, and hopefully if there ever was a delay at this point, it wouldn't be anything more
Any
than
long
a week
delay,
or something,
yeah.
which still
All
would
right, well-
sort of render the.
So it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks that we're putting it off. Is that
Correct.
3 weeks?
And
25th, right.
Right, and I think in the cover letter, it also indicates that it will have no negative impact on the schedule for the master developer anyway.
Okay. Well, that's the other critical
Yep.
piece. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering what this phrase or sentence means in this letter. The city will arrange to have all appraisals refreshed for April 25th's meeting. What does that mean, refreshed?
The laws of eminent domain require that the appraisals that are used at the time of the taking are quote-unquote fresh appraisals. These have been freshened, expecting we're going to go forward tonight. Now they need to be, refreshened a little bit more, apparently,
That's right.
for 3 more weeks. But we don't think that's going to be much of a cost.
And I'm understanding through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city manager, that there are some parties involved that are not quite happy with the eminent domain, that they feel, of course, that their property is worth more. When they compared some of their properties and the values that were offered, the prices that were offered to theirs, being a 10-story building with 3 acres of land and a freight elevator and storage for some very important things in it. And be that as it may, it seems that the building is not as useful as the person probably feels it is, because it is our opinion that we're only going to demolish the building anyways. We're not saving it to sell it or put it out or refurbish it or whatever, but I'm thinking that eminent domain such as it is, people aren't going to be happy, but I'm just relaying a message that some have told me they're not happy.
we fully expect that.
Okay, well, I'm just, so,
And I appreciate the message, but
all right.
Thank you. Councilor Milanazzo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the administration is bringing the correct approach forward, and that is not to do any short-term borrowing. My question, though, as it relates to the Betty grant of the Section 108, is there a but-for clause, meaning that in some federal grants, but for the federal grant, the project can't go forward? I just wouldn't want to, in any way, slow the process down if they see us doing some short-term borrowing through an advertisement, which again I would support if that's the direction the council wants to go tonight. We could do that. Would that in any way impact the Betty grant of the Section 108?
Two heads are shaking no back there, so.
Okay, well then that's fine. That's fine. So as long as that wouldn't impact those federal funds. Thank you.
Counselor,
Are we proceeding with the advertisement for the loan order?
well, we're not on that, not there yet, I guess. The first item is this order of taking. I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing it at the moment, but Councilor Garcia.
I just wanted to reiterate, which is very, very important, and that's the last paragraph of the letter from the city manager. I drafted up with the assistance of the council, and that this will not impact the planned schedule for the issuance of the master developer solicitations. I think that's very, very important as we proceed to put this off. And as far as Councilor Mercer is concerned, there's never going to be a satisfaction on the part of people who are having their building taken over in terms of prices, and that's why the eminent domain proceeding is taking place, and it'll all be resolved in court.
Okay, Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple questions. One is kind of related to this, Christine, do we have an update as to our search for expert counsel?
Yes, we've obtained about 5 resumes already. Most of which I think have price schedules attached to them, and we're still waiting on other attorneys who we contacted, and some of them are going through a conflict of interest check, and they're going to be getting back to us. So what I could do is provide the council in your packet for Friday with the those resumes that we've obtained, as well as the prices associated with them.
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm trying to get this straight in my head. Initially we're going to go for use the loan, short-term borrowing to do this, but now it looks like the HUD money is accelerated and we'll get it in a few weeks?
Right. The normal course here would have been because of two things. One is until either late last week or yesterday, we hadn't heard from HUD as to when this $3 million part of this was going to be available, even though we've been chasing them for a year and a half on this. And they approved it in 2004. The second thing was these grants are usually reimbursement grants, so the city would have to normally spend the money first and then draw down the money from the grant. So we would have to spend it and then go to HUD and say, here's what we spent, and then they would reimburse us. But HUD has informed the DPD that because the process of transferring the money from the Performing Arts project to the Hamilton Canal was so involved and so particular, that they feel comfortable in not making us go through that reimbursement process. Do I have that right? Pretty much. And so that's why we're kind of skipping a step here with HUD's approval.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Financially, this is the most prudent avenue to go down. And it's only a 3-week delay, so I certainly support your explanation, Mr. Manager.
Councilor Elliott.
So where are we going? What direction? Are we waiting in the advertisement, or are we just going to wait until the money comes in? It seems to me that, considering we have a pretty solid commitment from HUD, that we just wait till the money comes in. Why go through the expense of advertising? And
that would be cheaper, clearly. I mean, the DPD feels very comfortable that the money's going to be here on the 19th. If that is in fact the case, then there will be no need. We've all been through ups and downs in this thing, where we thought, this was going to happen here, and things didn't quite happen that way. I mean, we've been
Right.
waiting since 2004 for HUD's action that just happened recently. So, I mean, clearly, you know, we don't feel, you know, we feel the money will be there on the 19th because they told us it would be. You know, but Councilor Donahue's question was, well, what if it isn't?
Right.
And what if it isn't, then to be on the safe side, you could go out and advertise, and within. And
But then we gotta go to bond council also for preparation of, I mean, we need a prospectus and.
Yeah, I don't know what the cost of that would be. You, Chris?
And in relation to the large, I mean, I'm not interested in delaying this any more than it has been, but if we seem to have a guarantee, and I know nothing's guaranteed, but I just want to know what direction we're heading into either.
Well, I
and I
mean,
think the
we
solicitor
would
does too.
recommend, based upon DPD's assurances, based on HUD's assurances, that we, you know, continue these matters for 3 weeks. I mean, I just,
Okay.
as you just said, Councilor, correctly, nothing's a guarantee.
And where are we with negotiations? Can you just, I know we have numbers of these properties here, but which ones are they exactly that we're talking about?
These properties are Lachulis,
The Lachulas
Saab, and
the McLaughlin?
what's the last name?
McLaughlin.
McLaughlin, yes, those three
Okay, are we
properties.
still in any negotiations with?
We're certainly wide open on any negotiations, and I've expressed that to Mr. Sophocles. I haven't heard from Mr. Saab, nor have I heard from Mr. McLaughlin. But we are clearly open. If people want to
Okay.
come and negotiate, we'd be happy to continue
Okay.
talking.
Thank you.
Councilor Ramirez?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly support it. I think that it seems to be financially prudent. I just had one question for the manager. Mr. Manager, so if we take so the implication is the vote triggers some type of legal requirement, and that's why we can't do it? In other words, we couldn't take the vote tonight and agree to let you run with it on the 19th the minute it comes. So you can't vote on it without the money? Is that it?
That's correct.
It triggers?
Legally eminent domain, the money must be, we must have the money in an account identified before we take any vote on the taking. Otherwise, it would be a tainted or illegal taking.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager, were you planning to use any of the HUD money to try to close the gap on the parking garage, or is that a separate issue at this point? I know that we have another report that...
No, I'm sorry. The Betty and the 108 were always targeted for acquisition of the Hamilton Canal properties.
Okay, I do have one question for the solicitor on, if we were to set the public hearing date for the loan order for the same night in April, would that trigger expense at this point beyond advertising? I would think bond counsel and things wouldn't get involved until we had voted a loan order at a public hearing. Is that correct, or I misunderstand the process?
Generally, the process would be that the bond counsel would draw up our loan order, which would not be a significant cost at all. I mean, it would be fairly pro forma at this point. And then it would have to be read twice so it would be 2 separate council meetings, and it has to be published for 10 days.
So are we in a position to do that tonight, to schedule a public hearing date?
You could, assuming that we would then go forward then with the publication of the loan order.
Right.
Right, you could schedule the public hearing for the
What I'm
same
thinking
night
is
as the 25th.
schedule a public hearing date for April 25th. If it turns out the funds aren't available that day, we could proceed with the loan order at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Donahue?
I mean, not to belabor the point, because we all hope the money's going to be there, but we do know it's been delayed. If we wait and the money's there, we still have to set a public hearing, though. No? We can just vote the takings, we don't need a public hearing?
Correct. Right.
Okay.
Right.
And will DPD personally guarantee the $5 million if it's not here?
Matt Coggins will.
They've clearly said that they would guarantee that personally and...
They're shaking their heads, but it's
and
not,
professionally.
yes. Yeah.
Madam, I move we delay the action as recommended.
Second.
Okay, on all 3 items?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, any
think it
objection
was-
to taking all 3 together then?
One vote.
So motion to delay this matter, as well as the next two items, the loan order and the vote to amend the Hamilton Canal Plan to the April 25th meeting by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Caulfield. Do we need a roll call on that?
Yes.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
9 yeas. This is also to advertise that, right?
Okay, the next item is a... Next item is a vote authorizing the city manager and/or the Board of Trustees of the Lowell Memorial Auditorium to proceed under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, for management services for the Lowell Memorial Auditorium for a term of 5 years and to execute a 5-year contract with Mill City Management, Inc. Whereas the Board of Trustees of Lowell Memorial Auditorium has voted to request the city proceed under Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, for management services for the auditorium for a term of 5 years, and whereas the City Council must authorize the city manager and/or the Board of Trustees of the Lowell Memorial Auditorium to proceed under provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 30B, in order to obtain such services for a term of 5 years, whereas the city has awarded such contract to Mill City Management under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B. Now therefore be it voted, the city manager and/or the Board of Trustees of Lowell Memorial Auditorium hereby authorized to seek, receive, and accept proposals under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, relative to management services for the Lowell Memorial Auditorium for a term of 5 years total without renewal or extension of said term. Be it further voted that the city manager and/or the Board of Trustees of Lowell Memorial Auditorium be and hereby are authorized to execute, deliver any and all other documents related to management services for the Lowell Memorial Auditorium on such terms and conditions as the city manager and/or Board of Trustees of the Lowell Memorial Auditorium deems in the best interest of the city of Lowell. And be it further voted that the city manager and/or Board of Trustees of the Lowell Memorial Auditorium be and hereby are authorized to execute a 5-year contract with Mill City Management, Inc. A second reading by title. A vote authorizing the city manager and/or the Board of Trustees of the Lowell Memorial Auditorium to proceed under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 30B, for management services for the Lowell Memorial Auditorium for a term of 5 years and to execute a 5-year contract with Mill City Management, Inc.
Move approval.
Councilor Donahue.
I certainly support this. I have a couple of questions because we weren't given the information in the packet. The contract itself, it's for a 5-year term?
The contract itself is for a 5-year term from 2008 to 2013.
So there's 2 more years left on the current one.
Correct.
Can we do that? Can we do a 7-year? I thought we could only do 5.
The prior contract was for 5 years.
Right.
And that one's still in effect. And as I understand it, the part of the rationale behind this is that in order to apparently book shows, we needed to have somebody in place going forward as well.
Right, right.
And so they went through the bidding process and under 30B, and what is before you tonight is to confirm both the 30B bidding process as well as a second 5-year contract, which is completely separate and distinct from the initial 5-year contract.
So that's my question. Can the council do, I thought we could do 5-year. I didn't think we could do more than 5. That's, I mean, I support this. I want to make certain that we can, because we're in the midst of a 5-year and now we're adding a 5-year. And can we do that under the statute?
I think essentially, the only distinction here is that the contract, the original contract, which has been properly voted and executed, has not yet expired.
Right.
But again, this is not a renewal or anything of the kind. It's a completely separate new contract that was separately bid and separately awarded to Mill City Contract. The contract obviously has not yet been executed. But it may be that Mill City Management might also be able to at least explain the rationale behind it. In terms of the legality of it.
No, I understand that. I'm not questioning that. I'm just questioning our ability under the statute, because my recollection was when we signed a 10-year deal with the spinners, that was we had to go through a whole bunch of hoops to do a 10-year deal, because my recollection was we were told we can't commit more than 5. I just want to make sure we're doing this legally, that's all.
Right,
So,
I'm not aware of any problems under this. I mean, anything over a 3-year contract, we would have to bring it under 30B to the council.
Right, and that you said has already been done.
That,
the 30B.
that portion
That
has
portion
already
has been
that
done.
portion has already been done. But again, this is for example, if it was yet another company, say it wasn't Mill City Management that was going to be awarded this particular contract, clearly you're not looking at a 7-year contract. You're looking at a 5-year contract that's going to expire
Commencing
in 2 years.
in 2008.
And then the second contract with, say, a different management company commencing in 2008,
Right.
going forward until 2013. In this particular case, as it happens, it is the exact same management company.
Okay.
But that was through the bidding process.
I certainly support this. I would like to have a copy of the contract. I know we got SMGs recently, and I just think for completeness, we should have copies of this for our records. And, but my understanding is, in speaking with one of the partners, is that this is required because of, or requested because of long-term commitments, and also that the management fee does not change or increase over the term of the contract. And that's the case. The management fee is
my understanding of
the
it,
same.
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
So if we can be provided, I certainly support it. I just had questions,
Well,
not seeing it and making certain that
I can
do that.
I can review that one more time and make sure that there's absolutely no
Okay.
problem on that.
Again, I didn't know if we needed special language like we did when we did the spinners deal. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Elliott?
Just following up, so 30B, just for people watching at home, it's a publicly bid process where a solicitation was issued, and anyone is allowed to place a bid, but this company is the company that was the winning bidder. Is that correct? And just again, I don't know if Mill City, someone wants to come up. Thank you. Just briefly, I think Councilor Donahue really asked the question, but in order for you to, to book events in the future, this is something that you need.
Correct, Councilor. Good evening, City Administration, Mayor, and City Councilors. My name is Tom McKay, and I'm the Managing Partner of Mill City Management. And yes, the request was from the Board of Trustees, actually. We went to them, approached them, and asked them, because of the fact that we were competing with other cities for long-term contracts with companies such as Sesame Street Live, Cats, some of the other Broadway shows that we have to go out 4 and 5 years. And we don't have that long in our contract, so consequently they were concerned about it. Secondly, there's a feasibility study that's being done presently down at the auditorium about refurbishing the auditorium with the help of that state grant. And the Board of Trustees asked us to be there so that there would be some continuity through that study and also hopefully through the construction.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mill City Management has done an outstanding job bringing the auditorium back. And I can remember when the auditorium was used just for graduations and the Golden Gloves. No longer is the case. My wife and I and my grandson attended a remarkable show just a couple weeks ago. Jeff Corwin, the well-known television star of the Animal Kingdom, he performed in front of 2,600 people. Sold out. I could not believe that was sold out. And it was the largest audience that he ever performed before. Broadway productions, Engelbert Humperdinck, all the top stars of Las Vegas and Broadway have performed in our city, in our auditorium, because of the management firm of Mill City Management. As Mr. McKay has indicated, there's going to be some extensive renovations at that facility. They know the facility, frontwards, backwards, back of the house, the concourse, and so forth. They have done a remarkable job managing that facility. And I certainly am going to support the contract, and I want to see them there for years to come. Thank you.
Councilor Milonazo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will support the recommendation to extend the contract for 5 years. In my opinion, Mill City Manager just makes it look easy. You can go to different events, and whether it be Norm Noel or Tommy McKay, they just do a superb job. I had the good fortune years ago, at the request of former City Manager Jim Campbell, to really work on revitalizing the auditorium, and it was at that time we actually brought in a different management company, and after a couple of years we realized we really needed to have local input and local control, and that's when Mill City Management took over, and they've been doing a terrific job for the community since then. So I think it's a good recommendation on the part of the administration, and I plan to support the vote.
Okay, thank you.
Move the question.
Second. Roll call.
Councilor Arman Murcia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Murcia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
9 yeas.
9 yeas, the matter is approved. Before we get to subcommittee reports, I understand our technical difficulties. Mr. McKay?
But I'd just like to say one thing. On behalf of Terry, Leo, and myself, I want to thank the city administration and the city council for continuing your support with us. It's really a vote of confidence, and we want to thank you very much, all of you. Thank you.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
Yep.
Now we're going to hear from the...
Okay, I do understand that whatever technical issues we have been resolved. If there's no objection, we could view the video. That was the gift from our friends from France, and then proceed with the meeting after that.
I still say a few of us mayors ought to go to France like they asked. And I want to make a motion.
Dear Mayor Martin, dear William, first let me apologize for not having accepted your invitation, but my professional obligations prevent me from answering it favorably. Also, let me thank you on behalf of the city of Saint-Dié-des-Vosges for the wonderful reception you are giving to Chantal and Véronique, and for your hospitality. You know, Saint-Dié-des-Vosges is very proud to have a sister city in Massachusetts, in the cradle of the United States. On one side, our city is also the cradle of America, as it is in Saint-Dié-des-Vosges that in 1507 the name of America was given for the first time to the new continent. So you see, in spite of the distance that separates us, we are very close and we have a lot of common points. Our two ambassadors are today in Lowell to show you our attachment with the sister cityship that was ratified in 1989 and in Saint-Dié-des-Vosges in 1990. Now, let me show you the symbolic key of Lowell that one of the former mayors of Lowell, Mr. Richard Ove, offered to the city of Saint-Dié-des-Vosges. This key is preciously kept in our city hall. I also asked Chantal and Véronique to let you virtually discover our cultural and natural wealth. And I do hope that it will let you feel like flying over to really discover it. We expect a delegation of Lowell to come over to Saint-Dié-des-Vosges for our next International Festival of Geography that will take place from September 28th until the 1st of October. As you certainly now know it, the theme of this festival is this year America. Through this big event, we intend to honor your wide continent. I send to yourself, to the City Council, and to all the citizens of Lowell my best wishes of happiness and prosperity. And let me say that I, my City Council, and the French people love America. We are proud of these friendly and fruitful Franco-American relationships. Thank you, America. Thank you for this friendship.
Thank you very much.
I'm going.
I'm going with you. Franco and Mercy is a going.
Mr. Mayor, I think
Yes.
it'd be interesting to note that that mayor has been mayor for 18 years. So there's no plan E form of government over there.
We told Veronique and Chantel, I've had that conversation where I said, he's been mayor 18 years. I don't even have 18 weeks in there, here. So once again, thank you for being here, and certainly extend our appreciation to your mayor for such a wonderful tribute to our city. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. All right, let's get down to business. We're gonna get out of here.
Okay, public hearings have been delayed somewhat, but we do have them here. The first one is a petition Keyspan Energy to relocate a gas main in various streets in Pawtucketville as part of the sewer separation project. We'll open the public hearing. Anybody wishing to speak in favor of this matter? If you just could give us your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Kevin Clark. I'm from Keyspan, supervisor, and we're requesting permission to go ahead and do this work. There's conflicts with our facilities and where the new lines are going to go, so we've been requested by the city to change locations in these areas.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? Anyone in opposition? That portion of the public hearing is closed. What's the wish of the council?
Move approval.
Motion approved by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Roll call, please.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milonazo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes. The next item is a public hearing for National Grid and Verizon to place a pole and conduit in Watson Street.
Hi, my name is Roger Parrott, representing National Grid. National Grid is seeking permission to relocate pole 3 Watson Street approximately 34 feet in a westerly direction to supply service for a new condo development being built there.
Okay, thank you. The public hearing now being open. Anybody else wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anybody wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, that portion of the public hearing is closed. Councilor Armin Mercier.
Mr. Mayor, before we vote on this, I have two outstanding requests that I would like to pass over to this gentleman who represents the National Grid. One of them was a pole removal at 39 Quimby Avenue for the Lowell Housing Authority. It's a long outstanding request that's still pending. I wrote it on the card, and I will give it to this gentleman. And the other one is that light pole number 3 on White Street has a light out. Appreciate it very much if they would pay attention to these two items. And I will give this to the gentleman so he can bring that to the appropriate authorities at the National Grid.
I'll personally see if they get sent for it.
Okay, Councilor Elliott.
Well, I'm going to follow along. Before I vote on this, I filed the motion, and Mr. McCarthy has followed up with emails to the appropriate person, but can you put a light on pole number 191-17? This has been going on for well over a year.
What street, sir?
On Westview Drive.
Repair a light there?
No, it's a new light.
Okay, Westview Road or Drive?
It's Westview Drive is right off Westview Road.
Westview Road.
It's pole 191-17.
Over 17, Westview.
Thank you.
We will look into that, sure.
Okay. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I also have a request. I file a motion with the administration to place a light on Johnson Street in Pawtuckaville. There is no pole number. So I'd like to have that address.
Is there an address, maybe a house number nearby? Or?
I can get that exact information to T.J. McCarthy, and he will...
Are you familiar with John Upham, the account manager for the company?
Yes, I do know.
He would be the one, that's the proper forum. He would direct it to us in engineering, and we will see to that it gets done.
I think we're trying to bypass that step. We're trying to bypass that step. They have that information.
I think that's our frustration, is that it's not getting to the engineering department, and that's why we're sort of holding you accountable here.
Councilor Donahue.
I'm writing it down, and you're in engineering now, so.
Okay, well,
Councilor Donahue.
this is crazy,
I
but,
remember last time I was here, you had quite a few issues, and I personally saw that they got done.
okay, then I'll give you mine then.
Hosford Square, the pole that
You
was
guarantee
leaning.
it? No. There's a pole, I forget the number, 3-something, it's on Clitheroe Street. You've been notified, Clitheroe, C-L-I-T-H-E-R-O-E. I'll get you the exact number. But, you know, here's the frustrating part. They've been notified, this has been going on 2 years now, back and forth. Mr. McCarthy sent letters.
It's across from 35 Clitheroe.
Right across from 35 Clitheroe. Letters have been sent, and, you know, at some point in the past, the council has taken a hard stand and said, we're not approving anything anymore until these things are done, because it's, you know, it's more than annoying. It's, you know, really kind of total disregard for the request by the city. So, not to shoot you the messenger, but, you know, maybe in addition to these things, if they get taken care of.
What is with Clitheroe Street, though? I don't, what are we looking for there? What's
light that's out.
A light that's out?
Or flickers 24/7. And is usually, it's only out at night. It comes on during the day.
I just wrote up a bunch that were on all day long.
Yeah, well, this is one of those, but for the most part, it's out at night, so. But, you know, and again, not to shoot you, but maybe the powers that be there have to understand that we're going to stop approving these things if we keep getting ignored for months and months and months, so.
Okay.
Councilor Rita Mercier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I don't even think that it's your problem, but who owns the Victorian lights downtown? We do. We do. And since we have curling and a lot of visitors into our city, I was going through the downtown the other evening, and it was rather dark in the area of the CVS 5 and 10, you know, in that area there. Right along the rows, there's like about 3 or 4 lights, Victorian lights that are out. So if we could have our electrical department take a look at that and put it back on.
Okay, roll call.
Do we refer this to the wire inspector?
All right, motion to refer to the wire inspector by Councilor Rita Mercier, seconded by Councilor Armin Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That matter is referred to the wire inspector. Next public hearing is by Verizon to place 60 feet conduit in Lexington Avenue. Anyone wishing to, the public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak in favor?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. My name is Robert Gracia. I'm a manager with Verizon New England Incorporated. Our location is at 28 Diana Lane here in the Merrimack Valley in Dracut. And the petition that I have before the council this evening is a request for permission to place and occupy approximately 60 feet of underground conduit from an existing pole number 2 on Lexington Avenue. And if the council is familiar with this location at Lexington and Pawtucket Road, there is a residential condominium development under construction, and this conduit will allow Verizon to bring telephone facilities to that development.
Okay, anyone else wishing to speak in favor? That portion of the public hearing is closed. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? In opposition, that portion of the public hearing is closed.
Move approval.
Motion to refer to the wire inspector by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Matter is referred to the wire inspector. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, there is a communication from the city manager. Is a motion to suspend the rules to accept the communication by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All those in favor of that suspension say aye. Any opposed? The rules are suspended for this purpose. Dear Mayor and City Councilors, please be advised I will be out of town on Tuesday, April 11th through Saturday, April 22nd. Would like to recommend to the City Council that Jim Kennedy, CFO, be appointed acting City Manager. If you have any questions regarding this request, please let me know. Thank you for your consideration. John F. Cox, City Manager. Motion to accept the communication and appoint Mr. Kennedy acting City Manager during that period by Councilor Ramirez, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That matter is approved. Okay. Subcommittee reports.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilor Milanazzo.
While we're under suspension, there's also a letter from the manager regarding the jam parking structure. I don't know if you want to take that up now and refer it to the Economic Development Subcommittee. Is that something we want to do, or it was in the packet?
Motion to suspend.
Which one was about, Councilor?
It's the letter dated March 31st referencing jam parking structure, and it was...
Yeah, we would expect that to go to the Economic Subcommittee, right?
Okay, that matter is pending before the subcommittee already, so I guess motion by Councilor Elliott, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo, refer that additional matter, the subject matter of that letter, to the Economic Development Subcommittee.
Correct.
All those in favor of that motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion is approved.
And that will be scheduled for next Tuesday.
Okay, subcommittee reports. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. It's quite a lengthy report, but it's an important report involving safety of our school children. And if I may, I'd like to pass these pictures down to my colleagues. They could look at them. The Neighborhood Traffic Subcommittee convened a meeting with the School Committee Transportation Subcommittee on Wednesday, March 29th. Councilor Kevin Broderick had a family commitment, so he could not attend the subcommittee meeting. Councilor Rita Mercier and I, along with school committee members Regina Fattacani, Connie Martin, and Jackie Doherty, discussed ways and means of addressing safety issues at the Bailey School and the Daly School. Also in attendance was T.J. McCarthy, Ann Barton, Steve Curran, and Ed Walsh from the manager's office. From the school department, Superintendent Carla Brooks-Bear, Jay Lang, John Dakota, school committee members John Leahy, Jim Leary, and Kevin McHugh. I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. Also, approximately 30 parents of school children that attended the Bailey and Daly School also voiced their frustration. Principal Richard Perry from the Bailey School and Principal Liam Skinner from the Daly School also either sent a letter or was here in person. Liam Skinner from the Daly School was here in person to discuss the seriousness of this issue. A motion was made by Council Rita Mercier to accept all of Westchester Street, Campbell Drive, and Fleming Street, or any other street associated with the Bailey or Daly School District, so sidewalks could be installed. Some of these streets are not accepted by the City of Lowell, Mr. Manager, Westchester and Campbell Drive. A second motion was made by Council Rita Mercier for the city to install no parking signs on one side of Westchester Street, Campbell Drive, from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. during school hours. Also, signage to be installed on Fleming Street, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. during school hours, or whatever street Ann Barton or DPD feels necessary for those signs to be installed. Both of these motions passed unanimously. The installation of no parking signs could and should be installed as soon as possible. Ann Barton indicated DPD will do a survey with residents about a 60-day trial, creating one-way streets on certain streets, one-way on certain streets. Naturally, the residents are going to be contacted, and we're going to get input from the residents. Steve Curran and Ed Walsh are presently estimating the financial cost of the installation of sidewalks. Mr. Manager, I think the council and everyone knows this would have to be done in phases. It was an excellent meeting with many residents and parents venting their frustrations about traffic congestion, safety of the school children, and people blocking driveways. There are some people, Mr. Manager, who bring the children to school and they just think anyone's driveway is a driveway they could just park in and leave their car there. They have blocked people's driveways, and the congestion at the Bailey and Daly School is absolutely frustrating. The to more or less bring this to conclusion, it was an excellent meeting with many residents and parents venting their frustration about the traffic congestion, and I would like to thank the entire committee, especially John Dakota, for doing some research about funding for the Safe Routes to School, a federal program signed into law by President George Bush. This new law will enable the state of Massachusetts to apply for. Massachusetts has been awarded $1 million, and at the end of 3 years, that total will be $11,679,000, and that money will be allocated for safe routes to school. That would include sidewalks or anything pertaining to a child being transported to school. The next meeting will be held April 26, at 7 p.m. at the school department conference room. And at that meeting, John Dakota will present a representative from the federal government who will give us a presentation on this funding that's available. And I also want to state that John Dakota told the committee that Lowell, of all the communities in the state, is the only community that has reached out to apply for this funding. So I want to thank John Dakota immensely, and T.J. McCarthy, and all the city officials who were at that meeting. If my colleagues have looked at those pictures, you have seen that traffic and that congestion in good weather. It is absolutely astronomical during the winter. You can't imagine how bad it is. And I met with some residents up there Friday afternoon and talked about the sidewalks installation and one-way streets and so forth. And everyone is willing to come to the middle of the road, Mr. Mayor, and work together and address this issue. There is just not enough parking on Campbell Drive or Westchester Street or Fleming Street for everyone to come in at 10 past 8 in the morning, park their car, and bring the children to school. There is not enough room. And the buses are trying to get down Westchester Street, Campbell Drive, Fleming. It's just maddening, absolutely maddening. So I know this could be costly, but what price do you put on a child's life? And we have to address this, Mr. Manager, probably in phases, but it has to be done. It just has to be done, because there are there's 800 children that attend the Daly School and close to 500 that attend the Bailey School. And I know Councilor Mercy has been up there looking at that intersection, and it has to be addressed. So that's the report I'm bringing to you, Mr. Mayor, and we're going to be following up with other meetings. We're going to conduct a neighborhood subcommittee meeting, probably at the Bailey or the Daly School, with the residents, and we want everyone to be involved with the solution to this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Rita Mercier.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilor Caulfield said it exactly the way it was, put it all into an order. I just wanted to add that the principal of the Daly School, Liam Skinner, was very passionate in his speech to be concerned about the safety of his children going to the Daly School. He said that 100 more students are walkers because the mileage distance requirement has increased, that two or any of those recommendations would be helpful to some degree. Signage, no parking signs, loop to a one-way system would be helpful. A 20-mile-an-hour school zone sign to be put up would be short-term, but would be very important to have that up there. Parents got up and spoke, concerned about the safety of their neighbors, their children, their friends' children in the neighborhood. One-way solution for those streets is the cheapest. We know that sidewalks are very beneficial, but I know there's a cost restriction. One of the parents said that sidewalks dress up the property. You're not actually walking on the person's grass, or in this case, their dirt. There's less property to take care of, and he did everything he could to sell us the fact that they needed sidewalks there. We certainly did know that. Of course, money is prohibited, I know, but every now and then we seem to get some money that we can do a certain section of cities, and I think this is very important around the Bailey and Daly School. It's very hard to know that you're putting up a school there and it's limited to all this congestion of cars and buses and traffic, and everybody wants to get their child to the door. But if we could have them safely on a sidewalk, and that would be the ultimate goal, I don't know how much that would be, but we did learn about this program that Councilor Caulfield talked about, Safe Routes to School program. If we could just try to see what we could get to make that happen so the burden wouldn't be on the taxpayer. I know we get Chapter 90 money. We need to have a portion of those sidewalked areas that would be sidewalks into the domain of the city's ownership, so that, because Chapter 90 funding wouldn't be able to go into a sidewalk area that wasn't accepted by the city. So there's a lot to this, but in the short term, there are solutions that we can do, and everybody was working together. I want to thank everybody for being there. T.J. McCarthy was very instrumental in being there and adding what he could, as well as the parents were very concerned. So it was a very informative meeting. I want to say that on April 26th, we'll be having the next phase of this meeting. So we're trying to do everything we can as an administration to try to provide safety for our children. So thanks for letting me say that.
Okay. Motion to accept the subcommittee report as a report of progress. Oh, Council, you had a couple of motions that came out of the report, right?
Yes. The committee would like to see the signage installed as soon as possible. No parking on this side of the street. This would open up the lane and give valuable room to the buses and so forth. And that's the first thing we'd like to see happen. And bring a vote for the law department to draw the proper vote to accept those streets that need to be accepted. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. I'd want a lot more information before I support a vote to accept the streets and what the implications are in terms of, because I don't know. You know, can we put signs up if the street's not accepted? I mean, the signage, you know, certainly sounds like, assuming the traffic department approves it, will do we need the streets accepted before the signs go up? Is that, or can we just put the street signs up? We plow them anyway, right? Okay.
I think we could probably put the signs up.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't oppose that, but if the idea is that we're going to accept streets and put in sidewalks, I want a lot more information. The costs are obviously the most important thing that I'd like to know. You know, quite frankly, the issue of around schools without sidewalks can apply to almost any school across the city. I understand this is a congested neighborhood, but I'd want to know how many are walkers. It sounds to me like you have, I mean, you know, you have buses and you have cars clogging the streets. Well, those, you know, you can't have it both ways. Either they're walking or they're getting a ride. And it sounds like a vast majority are getting rides. But, you know, we have so many demands here in the city that, I mean, are we talking hundreds of thousands of dollars for sidewalks? I mean, that's what I would like to know. You know, what is the realistic cost So before I support any, if any vote that's going in that direction, I'd really want the information beforehand. And I understand the subcommittee continues to meet and is meeting again, but before that vote comes to the council as a whole, I expect that's what's being provided to the subcommittee, but I'd really want to know that. As far as if we can put up signs, and that's a recommendation, is that going to the traffic engineer? Is that the process?
We'll probably just put them up.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have that.
Councilor Rita Mercier?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have that information here. From the Bailey School, there's a total of 487 elementary students that attend this school. 270 of those students, or 55%, are transported by bus. And 217, which is 45% of the students, ride with the parents. At the Daly School, there's a total of 820 elementary students that attend this school. 280 students, or 34%, are transported by bus, and 540, which is 66%, are students that ride with their parents or they walk to their home. Just like at the Bailey School, 217, or 45% of the students, either ride with their parents or walk to school. That's what we learned.
Okay, there's a motion, I think, to have the signs installed at the recommendation of the parking department or the traffic engineer, I'm sorry.
That's right.
Okay, so seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. All in favor of that motion? You want to be heard on that motion,
I
Councilor
would,
Milonazo?
thank you. I'll support the motion, but I just want to make sure that once the signs go up, that they're enforced. If you go to the Sullivan School, where they have no parking signs on the right-hand side, there are some nights you can't get a fire truck or an ambulance up the street because they still park on that right-hand side. So I would want to make sure, obviously, that whatever signs go up, and if we end up going to a one-way system, that it all gets enforced.
Okay, Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's what I was going to suggest, that we either amend the motion or send some notice to the chief to try and get someone down there to patrol to enforce these signs, because putting the signs up, people probably aren't even going to look at them because they haven't been there. So I think they're going to need to be enforced for a little while so that people remember that they're there, and also for some of the other schools as well. I think it would be important.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This all come about when John Dakota asked Councilor Rita Mercier and myself to meet with him up at the Bailey School and Daly School last October. We did. We filed a motion, and the report of the motion, I believe, was in everyone's packet. This is the recommendation from DPD. Construct sidewalks along one side of Westchester Street from Campbell Drive to Stevens Street, and Campbell Drive from Westchester Street to Lincoln Parkway. That's the Bailey School. The Daly School constructs sidewalks along one side of Fleming Street from Florence Road to Stevens Street, and Van Greenby Road from Fleming Street to Lincoln Parkway. The acceptance of the streets, Westchester Street, Campbell Drive, Fleming Street, the city plows those streets, people have lawns on those streets, etc. Ed Walsh and Steve Karen indicated to the subcommittee, portions of those streets aren't accepted by the city. Only 600 feet, I believe, of Westchester Street has been accepted. There's a portion that hasn't been accepted. That's why I brought that forward.
Okay, well, the motion before us is to approve the signs as recommended by
Right.
DPD. I don't think there's any issue with that, so all in favor of that motion, say aye. Any opposed? That motion's adopted. As to the rest of the subcommittee report, you're going to continue to meet on that issue. We're going to get some cost estimates on the sidewalk, so I think a motion
Yes.
to accept the report as a report of progress is in order there. So moved by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Milonazo. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? That motion is adopted. And we understand the subcommittee is going to continue to meet on this issue.
This is going to be a long, drawn-out process, Mr. Mayor, and this isn't going to be completed at one meeting.
Right. Okay.
And Steve Curran and Ed Walsh are going to come back to the manager with a cost to install sidewalks. And it won't be done in 1 year. It'll probably be done in phases.
Understood. Other subcommittee reports, Councilor Elliott, or are you on this one?
I just wanted to, as part of maybe the subcommittee follow-up, I'll presume that if the city hasn't accepted these streets, which would mean that they're not eligible for Chapter 90 reimbursement. And in order to meet certain in order to accept the street, it needs to meet certain width requirements, certain dimensions before we get a fair amount of money back from the state on a reimbursement basis to put in sidewalks and streets. So is that one of the reasons for accepting it? The number one reason, right? So in order for us to get some money to even consider sidewalks, it has to be accepted by the city. And I thought we were in the process at one time to start moving on and I believe that we did accepted a lot of streets in order so we could expend state money. But as part of that, does that require that we take certain pieces of property for sidewalks?
Well,
So, and I think that's, I think that's a real issue that, and I think we need sidewalks, but, some people don't want them either, so I think that's part of the.
Yeah, it's kind of complicated because you just can't go in and sometimes just put a sidewalk in, because once you get into the street and start using Chapter 90 money, then the street has to be a certain width, and then the
Right.
sidewalks have to be handicap accessible. So it really is not like it used to be in the old days, whenever that was. Years ago, I think you could just do a street and not have to build all these sidewalks up. But we
Right.
saw when we were able to do a lot of the streets in the Highlands and other areas that the streets were built and very
Handicap.
complex and expensive sidewalks.
And
when
they have to
do.
be handicap accessible and
Correct.
a lot of.
So that's something we'll
okay.
have to look at.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Additional subcommittee reports, Councilor Donahue?
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me, Councilor.
Sorry.
Councilor Ramirez, do you want to be heard on this issue?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, maybe for the manager or the assistant. What is the process for putting in a sidewalk if you're a private citizen? Where do you go? I know a couple of years I was looking into it, and I remember asking the mayor about it, and he said he wasn't sure. Is there an office or is there a department that you go down and you apply? Where is that?
I think I know a report was done some years ago, which listed the various streets in the city by some sort of numerical rating, and I think DPW tries to work off of that list. And so we've seen over the last several years a number of streets that are in bad disrepair be completed. I think what they try to do is they try to do sections of the city where a number of bad streets currently exist, so that all their equipment is there. It's not expensive to do. I don't think it's cost effective to do one street in Pawtuckaville and one street in the Highlands and one street in Centerville. So I think what they try to do is they try to get a number of streets that are all kind of bad at the same time and go in there and have the equipment there, and they work on that for a number of months. When they do that when you put in a new street in now with Chapter 90 money, that triggers the sidewalk construction, and it has to be handicap accessible and the like. So that's how it's done. DPW every year, I think, put together some sort of a list that they try to do based upon Chapter 90's money, based upon their estimates of what that's going to cost.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And if somebody wanted to just pay for it as a betterment to their property, are they allowed to do that, or do they still have to get permission because of, as you say, the handicap?
Councilor Rita Mercy, I may know the answer to that.
Thank you very much. When I lived on Royal Street for all those years, 3 of us neighbors got together. We wanted to take our sidewalk, which was hot-topped, and we wanted to make it cemented. So we petitioned the city council to release the sidewalk to us, which they did that at a council meeting, so therefore we assumed ownership. We then proceeded, because we would incur the liability if anybody got hurt. So we dug up the 3 sidewalks. One was across the street, one was next door, and we were over here. We did all the work ourselves individually. We hired a McClellan cement truck to come because you had to buy the whole machine. You couldn't just put like one little bit here. You had to pay for the whole truckload, which we did that. And on a particular day, they came and they poured everything. We had frames and everything to grab onto the cement. We did the whole 3 sections of the street, across the street, in quite a lengthy ways. After we get done, we petitioned the city council if they would accept our sidewalk back as their own. And if you went over there today, you would see 3 neighbors with beautiful cemented sidewalks, and that's the process that it takes.
So you gotta come before the council, and I'm just wondering, because I know some folks have asked me about, is there a way, Madam Solicitor, to maybe formalize that into some paperwork that you can fill out and bring it in the council packet so people don't have to come out? And I'm not suggesting that they don't, but some folks may not want to come up and speak before the council on their sidewalk. Is there something we could come up with where somebody comes and fills out some paperwork and you bring it to us and we can vote on it as opposed to having people have to petition?
I mean, it's,
People do that every day when they want a handicap parking sign in front of their house. They petition the council through the clerk's office.
Okay.
He presents it to us, and we vote on it on their behalf. We refer it to the traffic engineer. That is their citizen right, and it goes through the clerk's office. They don't have to appear before a microphone and ask that that happens.
Great, all
Okay,
right.
thank you. Councilor Donahue, your subcommittee report.
I think. Public Safety met again tonight to discuss items that we hadn't gotten to last Tuesday night at the subcommittee meeting. The first item we took up, and I'll give you the shortened version of it, was we received an updated report on UTEC meetings that the police department has had with UTEC since a number of issues were brought to the council and referred regarding problems in the downtown and so forth. We were told that the meetings were productive, that UTEC, the board, the staff were very cooperative, that one change that's an important one is that a lieutenant from the police department will now be a member of the board of directors, which will provide for better and more direct communication. And so that was a satisfactory report and one that bodes well for future dealings. We were also told that UTEC has finalized the purchase of another location outside of the downtown, and they expect to move within 6 months. So that could greatly alleviate some of the issues some of the businesses have in the downtown on a daily basis. A second issue we took up had to do with the gang issues, and we were again given reports as to where we stand. Essentially, we were told that there are ongoing meetings, things like Safety First, Tuesday afternoon meetings where there are meetings with the gang unit, which right now has staffing through the gang unit, meaning the police department's gang unit, staffing of up to 7 police in the gang unit. Certainly you'd like more, but that's an increase over what we had in the past, and they're doing a very good job out in the street trying to keep abreast of what's going on with the issues out there. Knock on wood, we've had been able to have less gang activity in terms of serious crime, and the crime that has happened, the police have been able to make appropriate and rapid arrests on these issues. Certainly summertime coming up is something that the police department is working on, working with, in conjunction with not only the groups I just mentioned, but also with the school department and resource officers to stay abreast and hopefully ahead of any problems for the summer. We asked for a report on where we stand in terms of the gang summit and some of the working, implementing some of the recommendations. In that vein, we have applied for a grant. This is part of the Shannon grant, the state grant that recently became available, and there's an application the city made for grant monies if we're fortunate enough to receive some. The police department and the administration would expect to use a lot of those monies to target kids who are either gang involved or at-risk kids, dealing with things like recreation, truancy, and a number of things, working toward life skills, working with the areas that have been problematic in the past, Lower Highlands and Acre, in terms of trying to analyze programs and what's being offered to the kids in those sections. So this is a grant that if we are given the grant, it would be expected, or even some of the monies we've applied for, that the monies would be received by June 1st. So it's a short turnaround grant, and that would greatly benefit some of the efforts and focuses that the city has in dealing with the gang issue. And so that was a report of progress as to where we're going and things that have been implemented and that we look to implement in the future. A third issue we took up, this was in response to a request made by Councilor Elliott last week, and that was asking for a spreadsheet indicating staffing and in terms of the police department and where we stand. We had taken up the issue last week as far as beginning a background check in the event we're able to add any officers in the next fiscal year. But tonight, what we talked about were the where are the officers, where are they assigned, how many there are, and so forth. And so without getting, I believe everybody received a copy of the staffing levels in their packets. Without going through those in great detail, we were essentially advised what we were told last week, and that is out of the, let's say, 111 patrol officers, that the realistic number is that, and then from that you subtract to get to the actual staffing levels. It may not be as high without getting into numbers as one might think if you think there are 235 sworn police officers on a regular basis due to a number of factors. We asked for a further report tonight as to officers that are in certain jobs that maybe can be done by civilians. Councilor Caulfield raised an issue and asked for information, for instance, in the MIS department at the police department. And also, Councilor Elliott asked for a report regarding officers who have been out on administrative leave. Essentially, what we're trying to do is determine realistically, are these leaves or are these officers going to be available for street or for patrol duty, yes or no, and if so, when, so that we can get a pretty clear picture and handle on how many are a realistic number so that we know when we look at staffing and what we're dealing with. The numbers have gone down in terms of the 111F, those are officers out due to injuries. We're down to 20 officers now that are out on 111F. However, we were told, and this is the nature of the job, and that is, 2 officers were injured just recently making an arrest on the street when they were hit by a drunk driver. So, this is the nature of the business, that injuries, we can do our best to bring them down, but it is a physical job. Officers are out in the street 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and they're bound to get injured. So it's just the reality. The last issue we took up had to do with the 9/11 emergency center at the police department. Last week we were given a report as to injuries happening there due to the conditions. We had asked for a report last week as far as what are the injuries, what's happening there. Everybody should have gotten this report. So far, since December 30th, 2004, there have been 4 employees injured and various types of injuries in the center due to the conditions. This is a complex problem. I know I visited the center to see the conditions. They are not good conditions. These employees are crowded in a very small area that is difficult at best to work in addition to the fact that what's causing these injuries is a computer floor that is, quite frankly, old and in need of repair. There have been repairs done to the floor. There have been Band-Aid type of repairs, as well as putting carpeting and a number of things have been done. But the problems still exist, and there are more than just the floor problems. But the real serious issue is that this is the heart of our emergency response for the entire city, both police, fire, all of the cables, all the communications are under that floor. And so, in addition to employees possibly being injured, we could be without our emergency response if those cables were damaged. What makes it difficult to deal with is it's not something that you can shut down and make repairs and let the employees work somewhere else, because it is so technical and everything is crowded and cramped into this area. We've asked for a further report We've heard estimates of cost if we were to move this center to another part of the building, because you can't shut it down, so you'd have to rebuild it somewhere, and the cost could be north of $1 million, and that would be, again, not the best circumstance or solution in an old building. And we've also asked for a report of what can be done on a short-term, both short-term and long-term basis. So one thing that in this little area with all of the terminals, and these people are basically right on top of each other, there are 28 employees working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. Obviously, the room never shuts down. And so the opportunity for getting injured, especially in a crisis or when there's lots of calls coming in, is even greater, because people have to move and get to computers and do so in a pretty quick fashion. The employees do a great job there. It's just, it really does require us to do something to solve the problem, at least on a short-term basis, with a long-term plan. So we're going to continue to work on this, and hopefully in the very near future can come up with something so that the employees are assured that we're doing the best we can, and we will make certain that we don't want to see anybody else get injured or hurt on that site. So that's a report of progress on public safety. There was actually, the only motions were for further information, but at the subcommittee level. And when we have that, we'll bring it back. So I don't believe there's any motion that's actions required by the council. So it's a report of progress, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. A motion to accept the report as a report of progress by Councilor Broderick, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Councilor Broderick, do you want to be heard on that matter? I didn't know if you wanted to speak. Okay. Okay, under any more subcommittee reports? Councilor Rita Mercier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really don't have a subcommittee report, but I wanted to announce that on Friday, April 7th, this particular Friday, from 1 to 3, we will be celebrating the 3rd anniversary of the Senior Center on Broadway Street. All are welcome to attend, and it is my understanding that the director there will be sending invitations out relatively soon, announcing it. I know it's kind of like at the last minute, but we just realized it was the 3rd anniversary. In fact, it was supposed to be the 2nd of April, but that would have been Sunday, so we know people weren't available on Sunday, so we're going to have something going on there from 1 to 3 on Friday, April 7th. And secondly, I'd like to announce about a new partnership that has been formed between the Council on Aging and the Lowell Police Department. It's a new initiative which will provide the police department with the opportunity to communicate and educate the seniors on important safety issues in a safe, comfortable, and convenient location at the senior center. The seniors will have an avenue to voice their concerns regarding their personal and neighborhood issues. There will be office space available from the Council on Aging to the police department to meet with our seniors on Tuesday for 4 hours from 9 to 1. The Lowell Police Department will also offer a senior police academy, and if anybody knows, we had a citizens police academy some time ago, and now they're going to offer it to our seniors. I think it's a great initiative, and the Lowell Police Department will also write a monthly column in the Heritage newsletter. So great things are happening there for our seniors, and I thought I'd just inform the public. If anyone is interested, all you need to do is visit the senior center and sign up if you're 60 years of age. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more subcommittee reports? Under petitions, we have 3 matters to be referred to the traffic engineer, 1 for a 15-minute parking space at 671 Central Street, and 2 for handicap parking signs, 1 at 21 Crowley Street and 1 at 228 Worthing Street. Motion to refer to a traffic engineer for report and recommendation by Councilor Milanazzo, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Those matters are referred to the traffic engineer. Under the motions, the first motion is by Councilor Elliott. The City Council vote to allocate wastewater treatment settlement to Sewer Enterprise Fund in order to address odor remediation for aeration tanks at the treatment facility, seconded by Councilor Donahue. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know I've alluded to this in the past, and I thought I was compelled to file a motion knowing that there is some anticipated a significant settlement that we went into executive session a couple of weeks ago. And before I go any further, I'm not going to mention any specifics unless we get clearance to do so. Excuse me, from you, Madam Solicitor. Have details, or is there any final resolution that we can state publicly, or we're
The
not
parties
quite at that point?
Sorry to interrupt. The parties are just finalizing one issue really in the settlement documents, and I would anticipate that certainly by the end of this week, hopefully, that will be fully resolved, and we'll have signed settlement documents.
Okay, well, without the specifics, it doesn't. My concern naturally is, as all of us here, that for 9 years I have received concerns and complaints about the odors, emanating from the plant, and here's an opportunity, and we've always been told that there isn't money there. It's a very expensive problem, and here's an opportunity that we're going to get a one-time windfall, and I just think it's important enough to take this money, and whether we receive it over a multi-year or a phase-in or not, I think it's important to designate this money for that. So I'm sure the manager, I don't think the manager and I agree on this, but that's my position. That's why I put vote, because I think we should. I think we have a problem over there, and we're going to get some money. Let's use it for this, and that's my position.
If I may, very briefly, Mr. Mayor, and obviously Councilor Elliott and I have discussed this. We have certainly some monies coming, hopefully more than what we talked about before. And my position clearly is, I understand Councilor Elliott's position about putting it into the enterprise fund to try to combat the odor situation there. The enterprise fund currently has in the vicinity of $7 to $8 million in it. And this is an opportunity, I think, for the general fund to recoup this money that was actually paid by the taxpayers of the city of Lowell for the interest on these loans when the project was built. So, I mean, clearly we could clearly use it in the general fund, especially with the list of the wish list that we're putting together for next year's budget. So I clearly think that there are monies in the enterprise fund which clearly can be and should be, and I think Mark Young is working on a plan to put those money towards a specific problem. I think when we get a chance like this to recoup some money that has been spent out of the general fund over the years, we certainly could use it. That's my position.
Councilor Broderick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have an indication of how much it's going to cost to fix the problem?
I don't know that Mark is. I know Mark's working on it. I don't know that he's completed the report.
No, the study was in the report last week.
Apparently, there was a study in the report in the packets last week that we are working towards it. I don't think we have an idea yet as to, or a specific number as to how much that would cost. I think well, I won't even guess at it.
There's been an appropriation made for a study, right? That's right. There's been an appropriation made for a study. The study's not yet complete, so we don't know the full amount of the problem there.
Are we thinking that it's going to be less than 7 or 8 million?
Sorry?
Are we thinking it's going to be less than 7 or 8 million that's in the enterprise fund currently?
I'm assuming that it would be a lot less than that. I'm hoping.
Okay.
Well,
Councilor Elliott.
Thank you. The sewer enterprise fund is not specifically, I mean, it's running a surplus now because we raised the rates, but CSO money, all the CSO work that we have approved is coming specifically from that enterprise fund. So it's not as if, while there might be $7 or $8 million in there, once all this work that we're doing and we continue to do, that's really my concern. CSO is going to eat up most, if not all of that, and then we'll be sort of at an impasse again. And I think the estimated cost, you can look between $1 million and $1.5 million to put covers and a filtering system on those 4 aeration tanks. If that, maybe the study is going to say you only need to do 3 aeration tanks or 2. Number 4 is the worst. That's where most of the bacteria meets the oxygen and the whole process works. So I understand the manager's concern, but I just, money in the hand now is to address it in the future. And my other concern is that we're going to put money into the general fund. It's a one-time a one-time issue that's going to fund an operating budget that's not going to be there in the future. So we're putting a one-time source revenue in that won't be there in the future. But I understand that this is money from 30 years ago that, taxpayers who typically are rate payers anyway have subsidized. I just want the problem fixed, and I see money there, and I say let's set it aside to address it. But that's the motion. Thank you.
Councilor Caulfield?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just on the motion, I, for one, and all my colleagues want to see that problem addressed, but I would be cautious. We don't know what lies ahead financially, what the tax rate could be, what we have for free cash, and Mr. Manager, I think we should go very cautiously. Once that money is transferred into the enterprise fund, that's where it stays. Is that so? Okay, thank you.
Councilor Armin Mercia.
I just have a question to the Chief Financial Officer and the City Manager. Do we know how much money we're talking about yet?
We know that we have settled, the matter with the town of Drake. I don't know that number has been made public. Clearly, we discussed at executive session. That's the thing we're talking about. Yeah. And there was something pending with the town of Tewksbury. I don't think I should say much more than that.
But we don't have the number for Tewksbury yet?
No.
I would, in substitution, move we delay action until we know how much money we're talking about, and also how much money we're going to need to cure that problem.
All right. That's a substitute motion to delay action until those two items occur, till we have the final settlement figure and a final figure on the cost of the fix.
Especially with the $7 million laying there.
Second by Councilor Caulfield. Councilor Donahue?
Well, I support the motion mainly because for the whole time I've been here, we're told that it's very costly and that we just don't have the money to fix it, and so that's why I support it, because I don't care where the money comes from if we fix it, quite honestly, but it's just that's been the story all along, is that we just don't have the money to fix the problem, and the problem really is worse now than it was 10 years ago. So that was the reason I support, and continue to support the motion. If we can identify other funds to get it fixed, I think that's really what the whole issue is.
Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support my colleague Rodney Elliott's motion. Anytime we can allocate money directly to a certain area, I think that's prudent as opposed to putting it into the general fund, so I'm going to support it.
Okay. Well, the motion on the floor right now is a substitute motion to delay action. Is there any...
Pending the...
So it'll be a roll call.
Okay. Roll call on the motion.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes.
Councilor Milanazzo?
No.
Councilor Ramirez?
No.
Councilor Caulfield? Councilor Broderick, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No.
Councilor Caulfield?
Yes.
Councilor Donahue?
No.
Councilor Elliott?
No.
Mayor Martin?
No.
Motion is defeated.
Motion's defeated.
6 nays, 3 yeas. Back to the original.
So, the original motion by Councilor Elliott, the council vote to allocate wastewater treatment settlement to the sewer enterprise fund in order to address the odor remediation for aeration tanks at the treatment facility. Roll call.
Councilor Armin Mercia?
Nope.
Councilor Rita Mercia?
No.
Councilor Milanazzo?
Yes.
Councilor Ramirez?
Yes.
Councilor Broderick?
Yes.
Councilor Caulfield?
No.
Councilor Donahue?
Yes.
Councilor Elliott?
Yes.
Mayor Martin?
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 3 nays.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a question?
Councilor Caulfield.
Through you to the manager. Mr. Manager, if this money is transferred to the wastewater treatment enterprise fund, and we should need extra money or cash to stabilize the taxes, we cannot touch that money?
If this money goes into the enterprise fund, Council, that's where it would stay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Elliott.
Well, that's really not quite true at all. money can go into the enterprise fund. We're the only one that are appropriate for that particular purpose. But if you recall last year, we transferred 2.5 million out at the end of the year to offset our revenue. So
And
that's not the case. And,
if I may, Counsel, we did that with an agreement with the Department of Revenue over a 3-year period.
Right.
So clearly, yeah, there is money coming out. This money will not be coming out. This money will go there, and the agreement we have with the Department of Revenue has an amount each year that the Department of Revenue has already agreed to. So I suppose that money will be coming out per agreement with DOR. But clearly, the money that we could have used the general fund from settlements, that money will be going into the enterprise fund per the council vote.
well, money can be transferred in and transfer out with Department of Revenue approval. That's why we do send the Schedule A and the tax-free cap. It's just a difference of opinion, Mr. Manager. I just think we have a one-time source. We've been hearing about that problem probably since the plant was built 26 years ago. And it should be set aside, and that's why we have an enterprise fund, which had run a deficit. We had no money for capital projects. So in any event, the motion passed. But money can go in, and it can't come out, and we did it last year to the tune of 2.5 million.
Okay. Next motion is by Councilor Elliott. The City Council requests the City Manager report on the policy outlining the timeline for budget schedule, the independent audit, free cash certification. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Elliott.
We had met in January, Mr. Manager, and just following up on some of those items, particularly the budget schedule. I think it was a zoning meeting last week had sort of indicated when we can anticipate the budget, and we're still looking for an outline as we discussed that, when is the budget coming in, when are we going to approve it, and the more I think about maybe this should go to the finance again, or we can have another meeting, because I think maybe it's a good idea to have a policy in place, and I know the state law dictates that we have to have a budget in place by the 30th, but when it comes to closing the books and getting the audit done and getting a free cash figure in place and working with you, I think it might make sense to put a policy in place, not just for this administration, but the next administration and thereafter, just as a guideline that, so we can anticipate, when we can anticipate certain items. So
we can certainly get your report, Council. It's almost impossible to put a guideline into effect with actually dates on it. The legislature does things at different times of the year. Much of our money depends on what they give us. And it would be foolish to pass a budget without any prior action by the legislature. And so that's what we've tried to do. I think we've been prudent with that. I think we've been responsible with that. I think it's worked in all the budgets we've done. And, it's very difficult to do something outside of that time frame. I was in the legislature when budgets weren't passed till well after July 1st. Obviously, they're getting much better with that now, but it's very, very difficult to do that without having some sort of knowledge from the legislature is what they're going to do. So obviously, we've begun the work on the budget. We're going to continue that work. We're going to try to get it done as early as possible. I don't know when the House is going to take up the budget. I would assume sometime in the next couple of weeks. When we get some more indication from them as to what the local aid numbers look like, and then we can begin to really focus in on it at that point. But we've done all of the background work on this budget already, and we'll continue to do that.
Well, I understand your point, Mr. Manager, but what really kind of prompted and got my attention, and I understand we can't adopt the budget until we have final figures from the state, but sometimes we have to, because as you had mentioned, the state didn't even come through with numbers, and you just have to, put a placeholder in there. But many communities have their budget almost in place because they're going to town meeting in the next couple of weeks. So that's why I think that we can put a timeline together and at least, start delivering on a certain date. And, that was, just don't want to let happen what happened last year, that it's the end of the year. And I'm really looking more on the back end with closing the books and setting a deadline that the auditor has to, close it out and meet with DOR the month before instead of, waiting till October, November, when some issues, and the rules are changing down there, and we need to to stay ahead of that. I don't know how many meetings I can remember you saying you had trying to resolve some of these outstanding issues as it relates to free cash. So, That's, it's
we'll
not
be
so
having-
much,
I'll
not
be
so
happy
much
to-
the budget. But quite frankly, we have our cherry sheet figures right now, so, and
We have
they
to put
came out
something
quite
together.
some
We're
time
gonna put something
ago.
together, some sort of a timeline that we're gonna hope to get this stuff done by, so clearly.
Councilor Donahue.
Thank you.
Thank you. My understanding was that this being an election year, they're going to finish the budget earlier because they go out of session, don't they go out of session the end of July or something like that?
We go out of session
Formal
the
session.
end of July,
Yeah.
so.
And that the House is doing theirs now and the Senate in May or something like that. But, you know, if we could get it early, because I think, and you know, I think the other part is important too as far as closing the books. But let's say the House does theirs in April, the Senate does theirs by early May. If we can get our budget sometime in May so we have enough time to look at it. I mean, better than 80% is fixed costs anyway. You know, most of the budget, as far as the, you know, salaries and wages, things that we have no control over. You know, so there's this slim part, and I agree with you. It's important to know what your real numbers are because it lets you know what you can actually do with that other small part of the budget. But once those numbers are in place, I mean, you know, even if we can get an idea from the cherry sheets, but once the Senate has acted and the budget's finalized, if that's in May, if we can get it shortly thereafter so that we can take it up and not be up against the wall time-wise. And I would support sending this to Finance to formulate some timelines for closing the books. For example, picking a date, be it September 30th or something, so that we're not running into this business again of coming in for 3 meetings in December. And on a related note, if I can, I didn't put it as unanswered, but if we can get an idea on the independent audit report, I had asked for it a few weeks ago as far as process, if we can be told about that in our next packet. You know, what's the process, when can we, and how long we've had the current auditor. So all of it kind of ties in together, but I think I think it's a good idea to send it to see if we can get a policy in place or a recommendation from Finance. So if there's no objection, I'd ask that the motion be sent to Finance as well as the, I guess just Finance.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ramirez?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This question may have been answered. Mr. Manager, did you say, is there a deadline for the legislature to have to pass a budget, or is it change year to year?
No, they're supposed to have a budget by the beginning of the fiscal year, July 1st. Many times in the past, they've gone late July, August, September, October, sometimes. Not recently, but in the past they have.
Okay, well, thank you.
Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great motion. I think, I understand we can't finalize it. We need to know the numbers from the state, but if, Mr. Manager indicated, you'll probably put together a wish list, if you will, of, including some of the estimates you may be getting from your department heads and things like that, so that we don't get sticker shock. I know we had some increases in wages and things like that, so maybe we can be a little prepared for that. And also, I think it's going to be very important, I know for me, is to see where we're at with the free cash. We have a meeting Thursday night with the auditor in terms of what's the anticipation, what are we anticipating building into the budget, and how secure is that number, as we had a shortfall this year. But I think it's a good motion, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Caulfield.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Manager Cox and his administration know what their budget is going to be. What about the school department, Mr. Manager? Have you met with the superintendent of schools and their staff? And
I have met with her.
Indicated
I met with her as well as Jay Lang, yes. With the mayor.
You know, last year they came in with a increase in the budget. That's something we can't even dream of or think of.
Okay, all those, this motion is recommended to be referred to the Finance Subcommittee. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion is so referred. Next motion by Councilor Elliott. The City Council requests the City Manager have the Law Department report on the disposition property tax assessment of paper streets. Seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Councilor Donahue filed this a couple of weeks ago, and until I received a call from an elderly woman on Woburn Street, I didn't make the connection, but I think it really is an issue that we need to look into, Mr. Manager, because I did speak to the assessor's office, and apparently what happens is when there's a paper street, and I didn't know this, but all the abutters are co-owners of it, and they are actually taxed. And I know you we had this discussion, Mr. McCarthy, and I didn't understand it then, and I do understand it now. It was when a tree fell down that was on a paper street and it landed on another person's property. Lo and behold, the paper streets are apparently owned by all of the abutters, and you can correct me, Madam Solicitor, if I'm wrong, but what happened is a woman called and said she received 2 tax bills. One was for part of a paper street on Juniper and South Lowell. So, and the only notification was an advertisement, so I thought it was important enough to bring it forward, and I think that's what Councilor Donahue's motion was a couple of weeks ago, but that we at least notify them by certified mail, because, I mean, I wouldn't know, if a piece of property was going to be sold or developed, and part of that included a piece of the paper street that, that I owned, and Mr. McCarthy has told us that, we have a lot of paper streets in the city, and we need to put a policy in place and let people know that they are being taxed, and it is their ownership, and, we should do, either dispose of and abandon the street or do something with it. So I know it's a little convoluted, answer and question at the same time, but can you provide some insight to on this?
The abutters, excuse me, sorry.
Go ahead.
The abutters should be notified, and I believe we usually have them notified by constable prior to the public hearing. So if there was a case where somebody didn't get their requisite notice, we can take a look at that.
Okay, but people that abut paper streets, homeowners, they should know that they own a certain portion of those paper streets. Is that correct? And they're being taxed because the email I got from Sulamay was that is the case, that when there's co-ownership on these paper streets, and if not, clarify for us here, so the people at home will know.
Right.
Because she said she got a tax bill since there were 3 pieces of property. She got a separate bill now for that piece of the paper street that is part of her land.
Once it's abandoned, it would become...
it has to be abandoned first, then it becomes
and then it becomes part of the property.
Okay, so once it's abandoned, so this woman has never been taxed on it?
There are some, that is one of the issues that related to Councilor Donahue's motion 2 weeks ago. And we are going back there because we don't have the proper assessments on extremely small parcels of property that have been previously abandoned by the council. So that's one of the processes we are going through. As far as a paper street, a current paper street that's still on the books, is there are maintenance issues involved or related to that parcel of property.
Okay, so once once the paper street is abandoned, then that's where the ownership kicks in? Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Councilor Rita Mercia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, because I don't want people to think that because they abut a paper street in about a month now or whatever time might elapse that they're going to be billed for that paper street. This is not what's going to happen. You only pay for the paper street if it comes before the council and we declare it surplus. If we declare it surplus, then it is offered to the abutters and they have to pay. And it takes a long process through the Register of Deeds. And this is what has happened lately with a particular neighborhood that it was declared surplus long ago. It went that many years through the Register of Deeds, and then it came back to the assessor's office, Susan LeMay, and they had to put it on the tax roll, and these abutters were taxed according to their ownership of the particular paper street. However, neighbors weren't upset about that, but there was one particular neighbor that said, am I going to fall into that category because everybody around me approved of it and I don't want to approve it, or I have to take a part of it? So that was the issue there, that one neighbor did not want any part of it, but I guess it becomes everybody's baby, let's say, when it's declared surplus and they own it.
Okay.
Thank you.
All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's approved. The next motion by Councilor Elliott. City Council requests the city manager and the city auditor provide a year-to-date expense report on the fiscal 2006 budget. seconded by Councilor Milonazo. Councilor Elliott.
Well, I think all of us received it on our desk tonight, so thank you, Mr. Auditor. And the reason for it was just as it relates to free cash and the deficits that we had last year, and I happened to speak to Mr. Fernandez before this, and interestingly enough, he's met with water and wastewater, because last year, the reason, all these deficits took a hit against our free cash, and those are sort of the new rules, if you will, that DOR is saying that they're not going to, unless you have documentation to make sure that you're going to get this reimbursed, it's coming off our free cash, and that's what happened last year. That's why we came up short. And I just wanted to correct something that was in the local newspaper this week, in the political column. And I really got a chuckle, and I was really taken back when I saw the comments about what I thought free cash was when we went into this budget. And I just want to, for the record, let the people know that I'd never said there was $10 million in free cash. I remember it very clearly. We were sitting here, and I was asking the manager. It was 3 weeks before the budget session, and I had a year-to-date run from the auditor similar that we have now, and there was at that time, with 3 weeks left of the fiscal year, $10 million left. Now, no one can ever believe there'd be $10 million in free cash if we had 3 weeks left of the fiscal year to pay bills another 60 days after for any other bills that would come in. That's impossible. So, you know, Mr. Campanini was completely inaccurate. I called him and I let him know. And then secondly, I don't know when, since I've been sitting here for 9 years, that I have ever led the charge for a raise, which was also in the newspaper. So I just wanted to set the record straight. I know it's just a political column, but I just wanted to, that certainly wasn't me. But anyway, just getting back really to the important issue is, Mr. Auditor, I know you met with wastewater and water department to look at those reimbursements, because again, that was a $3 million hit. Instead of having 3.8, we would have had 7 million. But DOR wouldn't allow it. So this year, if there are going to be some deficits, can you let, the treasurer and the chief financial officer know? Because we'll have to prepare a short-term borrowing, even if it's for 1 day. That will allow DOR to know that, look, we're getting the money in, and here's proof of it. So, and that way, we're going to protect our free cash figure instead of taking these hits and these deficits. So.
I think, if I may, Councilor, I think, you and I talked about that won't happen again. If there is already things deficits out there, we will do short-term borrowing to cover them,
I'm sure you don't want to have to go down to DOR, every other week to argue with these things. No, it won't happen again. If the treasurer needs to put together just, and we, even if it's just for 1 day, we won't have to pay the interest. At least that's going to cover us on the reimbursement. So, thank you.
Okay. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. Next motion is by Councilor Elliott. The City Council requests the City Manager have the City Solicitor report on the legal decision regarding the bidding of tow contracts, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did receive a report a couple of weeks ago, and I thought it was a good report, and it was clearly a feather in the hat of the city with this case. And could you just explain, Madam Solicitor, to explain the decision on the case and what implication it has, because it's really a benefit to the city. It was a legal case filed against the city because of the bid process that we put in place, and it really will provide additional revenue that we were looking for to cover these administrative costs. So I thought it was important enough to put it on and give us a brief explanation, because it has implications on other areas of raising money in the city.
Sure. This arose out of a council motion to make our tow contracts, which are not subject to 30B, and typically, even when we went out under 30B, they really weren't very competitive in the sense that there were times where everyone that was bidding, there would be more than the requisite number that we were going to be selecting who met all the criteria. And it was a motion of the council to, instead of taking a look at our administrative costs, which hadn't been adjusted in 10 years, to take a look at making this into a more competitive financially more competitive bidding process. And the way we went about doing that was adding a clause in the request for information from bidders, even though they weren't technically bidders, but those submitting proposals. And people were free to submit in consideration of receiving a contract, assuming that they met all the other criteria, and safety obviously is one of the primary goals of the police department when reviewing these contracts, that they would submit a financial bid price. And there were bidders that were rejected that had a high bid price because they didn't meet other criteria. And but there were some bidders who received contracts who were bidding as much as $20 per tow. And the money that is coming in, it was deemed to be perfectly legal by the court. It was not an impermissible tax, nor was it an impermissible fee, nor was it a violation of the statute, as was alleged by the Towing Association. So what it all means essentially for the city is that it's something that I think in the future, assuming that that this stands and that there's no appeal and that time period is running short, that this will probably continue to be a very competitively bid contract in terms of, again, in terms of money and other respects. And the good news for consumers out there is that this money isn't coming out of a ratepayer's pocket, and that was a chief concern, I think, of the council at the time in moving in this direction. It's coming directly out of the maximum price that a tow company is set. And in this case, they were going to be charging $90 regardless of whether they were giving the city any consideration for these tow contracts or not. That's still the case. And in some cases, of that $90, $20 per tow is coming back to the city. So it really ends up involving an enormous amount of money. And it's something that I understand other communities are now looking to do and to follow the lead that the council took.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was wondering if, Madam Solicitor, if you would consider providing the council with a list of all city contracts that maybe fall outside 30B.
Sure, there's a list under 30B in Section 1 of all the contracts that are exempt from 30B. And maybe the cleanest way of doing it is really just to provide the council with that particular section, as well as its amendments of Chapter 30B.
And so will that have all the contracts and those that fall under 30B and those that don't?
I could provide you, first of all, with all of those contracts that are exempt from the provisions of 30B.
Yeah.
The one caveat is that there are some that are exempt from 30B that might fall under some other public bidding provisions, such as 149 or Chapter 39, depending on the project.
Right.
And then even some of those are then further exempt if it's horizontal construction versus lateral construction. But as far as 30B, that would be very easy to do.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. Next motion is by Councilor Donahue. The City Councilor requests the City Auditor and the City Manager have the City Treasurer provide the Council with a full report of any and all costs currently incurred by the city on the bond for the Hamilton Canal project, including principal and interest, administrative fees, bond anticipated note costs, etc. Seconded by Councilor Broderick. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If we can get this report in terms of, I believe the amount of money that we've spent so far is 3.6 million. Is that the figure, Mr. Manager, as far as the Freudenberg acquisition and...
I couldn't, off the top of my head, Council, I don't know.
Okay.
Off the top of my head.
If we can get that, obviously we've spent the money, we're paying on it. If we can see where that is, I think it's going to be helpful going forward, because I think the council's going to be asked to make some decisions. Obviously there are takings that we talked about earlier tonight, and they may be delayed. And I know Councilor Broderick had a motion to revisit the master plan and send that to the Economic Development Subcommittee. But I think these are all pieces that we need to make adequate consideration and decisions. And, there may be revisions to that master plan that should be done before it goes out for a master developer. And just for my own sake, I'd like to know, all right, what's the monthly fee or yearly fee that we're paying now? And should we be making some adjustments so that we can realize some development there sooner rather than later? So that's the point of the motion. If we can have that information, either if not this week, then certainly before the 25th, or whenever we have a subcommittee scheduled. I'm not sure when that's coming.
I think we're going to do it for the 11th at 5:30.
All right, so if we can, if it's possible, if we can get that information for the 11th, that would be helpful. So that's the point of the motion for the subcommittee meeting.
Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak on the motion? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. The next motion is by Councilor Broderick. City Council requests the city manager have the law department report on the special permit issued by the Zoning Board of Appeals on 576, also known as 572 Rogers Street.
Okay, but it's really me.
Okay, sorry, it's listed here as Councilor Broderick. That motion by Councilor Donahue, seconded by Councilor Milanazzo. Councilor Donahue.
Thank you. On this motion, let me say, I understand that the ZBA and the planning board are all separate bodies, separate and distinct from us, and shouldn't be interfered with by the council, and that's not the intent of the motion. The real intent of this motion is to get some information on what happened here, and what the special permit, what's the nature of the special permit that was granted. Let me just say, by way of background, I was contacted by several people from Wentworth Avenue who attended these hearings. In fact, we were coming out of a subcommittee when a crowd was, this is several weeks back, had been at the planning board, and my understanding was the planning board had denied the petitioner. And the petition was this, in essence. There's a car repair station on the corner of Rogers Street and Wentworth Avenue. There was a petitioner, I'm not sure who, and this is why I've asked for a report, because I've gotten several calls asking me how this happens. A petitioner, and I don't know if it was the owner or someone who was going to be leasing from the owner, petitioned to put a used car lot on that site. And the neighborhood was opposed to it, unanimously opposed, I guess, with the exception of the owner of the property, for very good reasons. The used car lot will not only be an eyesore and a nuisance, but the traffic already on Wentworth Avenue in the vicinity of Rogers Street is extreme. And the people coming to test drive cars and up and down and so forth have caused great concern for the neighborhood. Now, these people, the ones I spoke to, have lived on Wentworth Avenue, one for 45 years, one for 52 years, and these are long-term residents. There were in excess of 20 people at the planning board, and as I said, the planning board rejected the application. The petitioners then went to the ZBA and asked for a special permit. Again, I'm told that the principal who wants to put the car lot there is from out of town, from Dracut. And the neighbors feel completely disregarded in this process. They've lived here their whole lives, they've paid taxes, and they feel their neighborhood's being ruined because someone wants to come in and put a used car lot on a site that's just not appropriate, and that there was a special permit or special permission given. So I told those who contacted me, I'll find out what I can. There was some confusion as to what was going to happen, whether there was a 3-month review or what have you. But I'm concerned about, just like we've talked about in other projects around the city, are we all on the same page? Are the boards and the city on the same page? When actions are taken that are detrimental to a neighborhood, that's a concern. And in this particular case, if the idea, and again, I wasn't there, if the idea is we want to bring business to the city, well, I'm not so sure a used car lot in the middle of a neighborhood that's going to be so disruptive is the kind of business that we want to bring. I don't, and two, this is a gateway. There was a time when we were concerned about the gateways of the city, and that we didn't want to have businesses that wouldn't be attractive. So, those are my own personal opinions about this. I spoke with several people on that street who are very discouraged by what happened, and I think rightfully so. But I've explained to everyone, it's not something that the council votes on. It's not something that comes before the council. The most I can do is ask for a report so that I can explain to them why, it happened. And again, what's the nature of special permits? I mean, are special permits to bend the rules and so forth? And that I can't answer. So that's the point of the motion, so that I can get back to these people who feel that when, many of them, one individual was 89 years old, came down to the hearings, and to feel their opinion didn't count. That's not, I don't think it's fair, and that's why I'm asking for the report.
Thank you. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a good motion. I also heard from several of the residents on Wentworth Ave, and I think there also is a long-standing problem with traffic. Anybody that's been over in that area, the cars fly up and down that street. A lot of young children live in the neighborhood. I think it's a good idea to get a report. It's my understanding, again, it's a 6-month special permit. And it's only supposed to be for 4 cars. They'd have to be stored in the front of the lot facing Rogers Street, which obviously would invoke some enforcement issues there. But I don't know if we've had a traffic study over there, if it's part of the ZBA process, but if we could maybe have something done, a traffic study, because aside from this issue, regardless of whether there's anything we as the council can do on this matter, other than get a report to explain what happened, I think that we should look into some type of traffic study over there, something that can be done to slow people down, because it's a serious issue there. And children go from Wentworth, cross over, and up. There's a walkway up to, I think the next one up is Parkview, and the kids there's cut-throughs there, so there's a lot of young children there, and I think it's a tremendous safety issue. Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. This next motion is by Councilor Broderick. The City Council requests the City Manager have the Board of Assessors report on projections for new real estate tax revenues. Seconded by Councilor Elliott. Councilor Broderick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I put this motion on because in the private world, I encountered a situation where there was a condo that closed over in the Burks building back in July and was refinancing already, and it was still being taxed as a Burks building. This was back in, say, February, which was a shock to me, and I've come to find out that it may take until July for it to get on the rolls at the city. So that kind of opened my eyes up to say, well, geez, all this residential real estate tax we think we're getting, we probably haven't gotten yet. So this all kind of comes together with the budget and the projections. I think hopefully it's going to be good news. With all the bad news we've had, or potential bad news and costs, I think this could be good news, and maybe Ms. LeMay could come in and give a little explanation as to how these things, I think it's the state law that controls when you can bring them on the tax roll. But I think that it's hopefully good news, and to see what the impact, the projections are. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Milonazo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would the maker of the motion agree to amend the motion to include any TIF that might be coming due and coming back on the tax roll, so that we'll actually get maybe a broader view of what the new real estate revenues will be based upon some...
Yes, yes.
Okay, so that's an amendment to the motion to include any expiring TIF revenues. All those, Councilor Elliott.
Is that the case, Madam, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the solicitor? If a piece of property is sold, say it's sold July 2nd, which is the end of the fiscal year, which is the beginning of the new assessment, correct? if we come with a new revaluation, that takes effect. My house is assessed at a different rate, you know, from June 30th on. If a piece of property is sold and once it's sold, is it not assessed at the higher value than the lower, depending upon the fiscal year? Am I confusing things? Council Broderick is saying,
There's some time.
do we wait until the whole year to make that
I think it's
assessment?
6 months. I think anything prior to January 1st gets picked up the following July 1st. We'll have a report from the assessor, but that's not something we do, it's state law.
That is a state law, because I think Council Broderick has a very good point. I mean, all of these units that come on say, after they're assessed, the new assessment, then we have to wait that,
right.
that whole year, and we miss all that new revenue.
I don't think it's a whole year. I think it's 6 months. I think it's a 6 month period, but that's by state law, and it's the same everywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Armin Mercier?
Is this report going to be coming from the assessor's office?
Yes.
Could we include, if there are no objection, what is the status of the closed churches in terms of them being, and we haven't heard any reports on that yet, but there are a number of churches that are closed that should be taxed. And I had made that motion and was unanimously adopted by the council. I'd like to have that included in the report. What's happened with that?
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as amended, say aye. Any opposed? Motion is adopted. Next motion by Councilor Ramirez. The City Council requests the city manager have the traffic engineer conduct a study at the intersection of East Merrimack Street and High Street, and findings be referred to the Neighborhood Traffic Subcommittee, seconded by Councilor Rita Mercier. Councilor Ramirez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Basically, I've heard from a lot of folks over there that are having a hard time turning from High Street onto East Merrimack Street with the oncoming cars. It's a real congested area, and I know with the Immaculate School sometimes getting out mid-afternoon, it's providing a real problem. So if we could get that report and refer to the Traffic Subcommittee, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion say aye. Any opposed? The motion's adopted. Any other matters to come before the meeting? Councilor Caulfield?
Mr. Mayor, before we adjourn, I would just like to make a statement here that I have spoken to, as long as many of my colleagues have as well, people from Cape Cod, New York, Connecticut, Scotland, Finland, Germany, Canada, the USA team. Mr. Manager, everyone is extremely happy with the City of Lowell, Deb Belanger, the Convention of Visitors Bureau. The city has gone above and beyond, and everyone involved with the curling committee has told me that, and has told Councilor Rita Mercier as well. They're very, very happy with the city, the restaurants, the history, and the people who reside here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I too, have not had any negative comments yet. Everything has been overwhelmingly positive. I would only add that I had someone specifically comment on how good the transportation was, and public transportation getting from one location to another. So I just add, if it's the folks at the LRTA, Mr. Scanlon, that are providing those services, they should be thanked as well. Councilor Elliott?
Nope, that's okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other matters to come before the meeting? Not. Motion to adjourn by Councilor Armin Mercier, seconded by Councilor Ramirez. All those in favor say aye. Meeting stands adjourned.